This presentation, titled Effective Process Objectives and Escapes, comes to us from Franck Cain. Frank worked for Honeywell for 40 years on aerospace NASA contracts, bringing ISO 9001 and AS 9100 quality management systems to the site. Serving as the management representative, he implemented the QMS infrastructure, trained the organization at large, was chairman of the Procedure Steering Committee, and acted as the father of the root cause and corrective action process. He also served as the site manager for quality conformance for 12 years. Frank teaches an ISO 9001, ISO 14001 course at the University of South Florida for the College of Industrial Engineering, is a lead ISO 9001 and AS 9100 auditor, consultant, and trainer, and has authored the books QMS Made Easy to Understand and Apply and 6 Easy Steps for Organizations Self-Transition to ISO 9100D. And with that, take it away, Frank.
Welcome to Effective Process Objectives and Escapes. My name is Franck Cain, and I am your presenter. Over many years of quality management system third-party auditing and consulting, I frequently observed organizations struggling with their selection and development of objectives, especially those used for assessing the effectiveness of their individual processes. This presentation addresses my observation. It explains and illustrates how to properly create and use objectives, especially for determining the effectiveness of your individual processes. You all recognize that the use of the quality objectives and the assessment of process effectiveness are required by both ISO 9001 and AS 9100 quality management system standards. This presentation explains the basic parts of an objective and how to write an effective objective, and I include examples to illustrate the concept. This presentation further promotes the use of escapes as an effective approach to determine the effectiveness of your organization's individual processes. Former client organizations are successfully using escapes to assess their individual process effectiveness with great success. So, objective basics. What is a quality management system objective? It's simply defined as a measure of results to be achieved. An objective consists of 3 basic parts. An action statement starting with a verb, a target or goal, you could use either term synonymously, and a time frame in which to accomplish the above action. Example, reduce scrap 50% by year-end 2021. Notice that the word reduce is a verb, that reduce scrap is the action statement. 50% is the target goal, and by year-end 2021 is the time frame. What objectives are complete and which ones are incomplete? Target 40% by year-end 2021. We take a close look, it's missing its action statement. Reduce scrap 20%. This one contains the action statement and the target, but no time frame. If we look at the third one, increase on-time delivery, 95% by year-end 2021. We have the verb increase. Increase on-time delivery is the action statement. 95% is the target or goal. And by year-end 2021 is the time frame. Now, in most cases, we graphically display objectives. We use them that way in management reviews and for communicating status to the organization at large. So let's take a look at how increase on-time delivery 95% by year-end 2021 is graphically displayed. We see that the vertical axis is the percent increase in on-time delivery. We see that the horizontal time frame is measured in months, that the target is clearly identified as a horizontal line at 95%, and that the actuals through March of 2021 is 50%. So if we just draw our imagine lines from the 50 and down to March, we could tell that. Now it's important when you display this kind of information that it passes a walk-by test, which means that if you look at one of these graphs, you need to be able to interpret what's going on rather than standing there and questioning and trying to interpret it. It has to be clear. So objectives for process effectiveness. What is meant by process effectiveness? It's a measure of an individual's process's ability to produce desired results. So here is our approach to create an escape-based objective. Step one, we have to review our individual process's purpose, inputs, process flow, and outputs. Then we need step two to determine what aspects of the process, if it advanced to a subsequent process with an undetected problem, would prevent the subsequent process from achieving its intended purpose. I refer to this as an escape. Step three is to select a means within your current organization to monitor for these aspects which might escape. Step four is to create your process effectiveness objective statement based on those aspects you determine could escape into and impact the next process. It's recognized that typically escapes are few in number and occur infrequently. Through actual client use of escape-based objectives, they have found them to be an effective measure of an individual process's effectiveness. So let's take a look at an example. A final inspection process escape. The final inspection process at ABC uses their inspection instruction to inspect populated assemblies to the following four criteria: proper orientation of diodes, that there's no missing parts, that there's no cold solder joints, and that the paperwork matches between the traveler and the actual hardware. And during March, populated assembly serial number 123 passed inspection, proceeded to test, and subsequently failed test. A failure investigation determined that the part failure was due to a missing part from the populated assembly. This missing part escaped the inspection process, allowing the assembly to proceed. And this escape indicates that the inspection process is not effective. So we would write an objective as follows: track the number of missed inspection criteria which escape into the test process at target 0 by year end 2021. If we were to chart this escape, we could do something like this. We could have a chart with the vertical being the number of inspection criteria missed, and across the bottom, we have the time frame in calendar months. Our target is indicated as 0 escapes, and we show in the month of March 2021 one escape. Due to this one escape in March, the inspection process is considered ineffective. It did not meet its desired output. Applying the escape-based approach to major processes. The next set of slides review the characteristics of several major processes in order to establish their individual process effectiveness objectives. So we start with contracts. And contract's purpose is it ensures a complete and accurate set of requirements that are provided to the design process. Timely notification of any amendments which may impact design requirements. Ensures that any risk which impacts design process is properly addressed, such as to design using a new technology new to the company. Our process inputs are requirements, customer requirements, associated risks, and contract data items. The output is a set of requirements for the design process, timely amendments to changed requirements, and risk acknowledgement and mitigation. So we all recognize we receive a customer purchase order. We conduct a contract review to ensure that we have the ability, capability, and capacity to handle the job, identify the risks, clarify ambiguous and missing requirements, and handle amendments. So suggest using the following criteria for your effectiveness objective. Missing and/or ambiguous requirements which escape into and negatively affect design process, unaddressed risk that impacts the design process, untimely release of a contract amendment which impacts the design process, and so on. So we could have an objective that sounds something like this. Target the number of contract process escapes which negatively impacts the design process. Target 0 by year-end 2021. Now we're in design. Their purpose is to design a process to specific requirements and produce a drawing print set. Their inputs are customer, regulatory, statutory, and any organization unique requirements. Process flow, well, they create the design concept, submit it for verification and validation testing, and once the design is reviewed and approved by the customer, it's then released to production. Their output is their designed product drawing print set and any issued engineering change orders. Escapes can take the form of a drawing set or an ECO omission error, such as wrong part numbers, wrong part values, missing data, incorrect ECO effectivities, and so on. It's up to you to pick these choices. So an objective could be to track the number of design process drawing set and/or ECO errors which escape into production. Again, the target is set at 0 and the time frame year-end 2021. Purchasing process. Its purpose is to procure the requirements, parts, and/or processes in support of production. Its Inputs is a request for a specific part. Sometimes it's referred to as a demand. Process flow is to check on-site inventory and if not available, select an approved supplier from the approved suppliers list and issue a purchase order. And the output is an approved purchase order that's sent to the suppliers. Purchase order escapes can result from any of the following items that would be missing from the purchase order: the wrong part number, missing reference specifications, the wrong quantity, a missing drawing, an incomplete or unclear description. In years past, we used to send out purchase orders like these, and then we would blame the supplier for not sending the correct product back. But we must focus in on doing a better job with purchase orders to eliminate that problem. One can conclude that if any of the above items are omitted in the release purchase order, the purchasing process is considered ineffective. So we could write an objective of track the number of purchase order omissions or errors which escape to the supplier. Set our target at 0 by year end 2021. Production. Their purpose is to assemble the designed product. They receive as inputs a kit of parts, a traveler, and work instructions. Their process flow is they use the parts kit accompanied by the traveler and the work and instructions to assemble the deliverable assembly. And when they're done, they sign the traveler off. Their output is an assembled product and a signed off traveler. Escapes can take the form of poor hardware workmanship. Assembly is missing a recently authorized update, incorrect configuration, incomplete build history, etc. So we could write an objective, track the number of production hardware escapes to the customer, target 0 by year end 2021. Final inspection process. They're there to verify and identify any workmanship or paperwork errors which could escape to the next process. In this case, it's test. Production assembly to be inspected, traveler, and the inspection criteria serve as their inputs. They inspect the production assembly to the inspection criteria, identify any rejects which can be handed back to production for rework, ensure the assembly meets all the criteria contained in the inspection instructions before accepting it. And their output is a fully inspected, compliant assembly and a stamped off traveler. Escapes can result from omitting any of the criteria contained with the inspection instruction, like the polarity of the diodes, the missing parts, the cold solder joints, the inconsistencies in the paperwork between the traveler and the actual hardware, just as examples. So we could use an objective such as track the number of missed inspection criteria which escape into test. The target 0 by year end 2021. So now we're in test. And their purpose is to verify that the build assembly pass all required tests. Their input is certainly the assembly to be tested, the test equipment, the traveler, the assembly configuration, and the correct test procedure revision. So the process flow, they verify the paperwork and the hardware match, that the test procedures, the correct revision, that the test equipment is calibrated, verifies the assembly configuration, conducts the test, records the results, and signs off the traveler. So the output is a completed test, a disposition traveler, and the test data. So here's some suggested characteristics. Is the received missing or incomplete documentation, missing hardware, required test procedure was not available or wrong hardware configuration, so on. We could use the following objective: track the number of incomplete test process omissions which escape to the customer, target 0 by year-end 2021. Packing and shipping process. Their purpose is to pack and ship deliverable hardware to the customer. Their inputs are the completed assembly, the required data package, shipping materials, and required shipping instructions. Their outputs is they pack and ship assembly with the required data package and ship it to the correct customer's address. Their flow is to receive the assembly and the data package with the authorization to ship, create the labels, verify the correct address, pack with preservation materials in the required packaging, and then ship it. Items to consider when selecting a characteristics to determine process effectiveness would be customer feedback, that they shipped the package to the wrong address, used the wrong packaging material, packaging was missing some hardware or paperwork. And we could have an objective such as track the number of times the packing and shipping process escapes were detected by the customer, target 0 by year-end 2021. Now, I've created a summary of the 7 processes, and you can see the effectiveness measures to the right. They're here mainly as a straw man for you to use to tailor to your own processes, perhaps your own selection of aspects to track as escapes, and to set your own targets and your own time frames. Now, some summary takeaways from this presentation. Objectives consist of 3 basic parts: an action statement, a targeted goal, and a time frame. Status of objectives serve as an input to the management review meetings. Graphical representation of objectives need to pass the walk-by test. Process effectiveness objectives are to be based on inherent characteristics of the individual process. Escapes typically are few in number and occur infrequently, making tracking these data a minimal effort. And finally, use of escapes have proven to be an effective approach for the determination of process effectiveness.
Thank you, Franck Cain, for that perspective on process objectives. And that concludes this presentation.